My name is Sarah Koffler, and I am the Early Childhood Education Specialist at JCC Association of North America. My preferred pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am joining you from my home in Scotch Plains, New Jersey. You all now know I'm in my home. You heard my dog bark. Apologies for that. But I am so happy to be here with you today. So happy you're here with us. I want to share that this session is being recorded. We do understand that some people do not wish to be recorded, in which case you may turn off your camera, although we do encourage everyone who is comfortable doing so to stay visible, so it can be as if we really, truly are all together. Joining me today from JCC Association is my colleague, Yael Warach, as well as Tara Ohayan, the Director of Early Childhood at the Dallas JCC. Our names appear as hosts at the top of your participant list. If you have any questions or needs we can help you address, please feel free to chat with any of us at any time. We're going to add our JCC Association inclusion statement into the chat box at this time. You may have also seen it in our waiting room. And this is how we begin every meeting and every gathering, because creating and elevating a culture of belonging is at the core of our mission and vision. ProCon 2021 is for you, for every person in this room and at this conference belongs here. And we are working to build inclusive spaces in which all people feel welcome, respected, safe, and fully included. To that end, we encourage you to consider the following suggestions as we begin our time together. We invite you to rename yourself in Zoom with your name, your agency, and if you're comfortable, your preferred personal pronouns. We've also enabled closed captioning, which you'll find at the bottom of the screen. If it's helpful to you, feel free to keep it enabled. And if it's distracting to you, you can hide it using the button at the bottom of your toolbar. And if there's anything else we can do to enhance your learning experience, please let us know. We are so thrilled and honored to offer this multifaceted conference at no cost to our JCCs, which was made possible because of our very generous ProCon 2021 sponsors. Each sponsor believes in us, in the JCC movement, and the incredible work JCCs accomplish day in and day out. Their representatives are proud to be with us to share their expertise and offerings, and we hope that you'll join us in showing appreciation for their support by visiting their booths in our virtual vendor hall. We also encourage you to connect with our vendors and everyone at this conference at any time during ProCon 2021 and beyond. You can use the chat feature to connect, and after the conference, you can always reach out using anyone's contact information. Now to today's session. This session has been created based on the work of our Engaging Families Working Group at JCC Association, a small group of lay and professional leaders dedicated to enhancing this field and this work. Our group leader, Mark Horowitz, has spearheaded this work as he's done over the past many years, most recently alongside Tara and myself, along with our colleagues, Rabbi Tracy Kaplowitz and Shari Smith. Over the past few months, we've also had the opportunity to gather with family engagement professionals in the field to strengthen this work, 4 of whom are here with us today, who you'll get to meet and hear more about soon. Throughout the course of today's session, as I mentioned, you'll get to hear from these 4 amazing professionals, followed by a panel discussion and opportunity for question and answer. And we invite you to visit SpotMe, our virtual platform for everyone's bios, more information and opportunities to connect. And so with that, it is my honor and pleasure to turn it over to my colleague and friend, Tara Ohayan, to kick us off today. Thanks, Tara.
Thank you, Sarah, and welcome everyone. We're so excited to see all of you here with us today. We're really excited to talk about family engagement. So like Sarah said, I have been the field representative for the Family Engagement Work Group this year, and it's been really an amazing experience to work among so many talented colleagues. So what have we done this year? We have studied research, we've hosted think tanks, we've explored other organizations and how they engage family, and we've done some big thinking together amongst ourselves and with other thought partners within the Jewish world. Why are we here? Like, why family engagement? We feel it's really important to put family engagement on the map, actually for people to realize that family engagement is a big and important thing in JCCs. And that's why we've gathered everyone today. Really, I believe that all JCC staff are really family engagers, no matter what department you're in, whether it's early childhood, it's sports and fitness, it's camp, it's a group X instructor, even our facilities people and our security, we're all family engagers. And sometimes we don't realize that, and sometimes we don't intentionally think about it. And our goal is to really, so that JCC professionals, everyone thinks of themselves as a family engager. You know, I want to give you a little example of something that happened to me here a while ago, early on in my career, and I was having some challenges with some lay leaders, some significant challenges, and I was able to talk to someone about it. And he said to me, all right, let me ask you, how much time of your day do you spend engaging with your lay leaders, the parents, the people in your school? And my response was, well, when I have time, I'll come out of my office, I'll da 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 da. And he said, we need to reframe that. Family engagement and engaging with the lay leaders and the families has to be a percentage of your day, and not when you have time to do it. And it has to be, no matter what the percentage is, it has to be built into your day. And that really shifted my framework on family engagement. And ever since then, I've been making time and carving time out of my day. But it shouldn't just be early childhood people. All of us have the capability to be family engagers. And since I've shifted my day, I've kind of now moved to the family engagement role at our Dallas JCC. And it's been a lot of fun and getting to know a lot of different people. So that's why we're here today, is to realize the potential in all of us to really engage families all around our JCCs.
Thank you so much, Tara. So as Tara mentioned, all of you who are here today with us know the significance of this work and its impact on our families and our communities. But we also know, by doing this meaningful work, that it isn't always as tangible and measurable, perhaps, as some of us may like. And we know that having research to support us is so important. So now I'm excited to share some information with you about an incredible research study that was just done over the course of the past year, entitled Exploring the Associations Between Jewish Early Care and Education and Jewish Engagement: Research to Inform Practice, a study funded by the Crown Family Philanthropies and led by Child Trends, as well as researchers from Brandeis, in collaboration with CASG, which is the Collaborative for Applied Studies in Jewish Education. This study sought to define and measure Jewish engagement as it relates to early childhood educational settings, to identify promising Jewish engagement practices for families with young Jewish children, and to examine childcare choices and levels of Jewish engagement among families with young Jewish children, both before and after ECE enrollment. The main question that the research focused on is, what does Jewish engagement mean to Jewish families with young children and to Jewish early childhood professionals? You'll see Yael just dropped into the chat for us. Thank you, Yael. A beautiful infographic that was created following the study to highlight some of the key findings. And I'm also going to share my screen. Are all of you able to see that? Can you just give me a thumbs up if you can see that on your screen? Fantastic. This is a much longer document than this portion, but for the purposes of our conversation today, I'm excited to highlight one of these main takeaways from the study, which is an understanding of the 7 main factors of Jewish engagement and why they're particularly important for families raising young Jewish children. So you'll notice on this infographic here, which, in addition to it being in the chat box, we will also share it as a resource on SpotMe, that some of these factors are probably quite familiar to you and others might be newer. And that's because while these first 3 factors of Jewish engagement have been commonly measured among Jewish teens and adults, families for decades, the remaining 4 have received less attention in research, despite being particularly salient to contemporary Jewish families with young children. And in particular, I really believe that items 4 and 5 have risen to the top of many of our wonderings this year throughout the pandemic. How can we help families to enhance their home practice? And how can we help to provide connections and interactions during times of social distancing or staying home to stay safe? And as the last factor so eloquently states, learning to understand Judaism's applicability within the real world of families' daily lives can help all types of Jewish families feel connected to Judaism's rich customs and traditions. So as the research clearly tells us, the narrative of family engagement is shifting. We know it's not enough to tell families what they should do or how to be Jewish, or just to say that these 7 factors should be important to them, but rather we must support children and their families as they find their own meaning in Jewish life and within the larger Jewish community. And while we know that there's many ways this happens for families, the research highlights 2 main entry points for families with young children. The first being the birth of their first child, and second being that child's entry into early childhood education. These times invite new journeys for a family, new feelings of openness and interest in new experiences, or a deeper interest to engage in Jewish life. Yet, although we know that early childhood is a primary entry point for families in the Jewish community, it can't just be about institutional attachment, because we now know families are craving engagement with multiple dimensions, with opportunities to be inspired and connected to the richness and depth of Jewish learning and living. This spans all age groups, all departments, all interest levels, from cradle through career. And this also means that the most successful family engagers honest the wholeness and uniqueness of the family, of every family at every stage of life. So family engagement initiatives are for expectant parents, just as they are for parents of teenagers or perhaps parents of adult children. The presence of grandparents in the lives of families expands our idea of engagement to another generation. And just as family engagement is for all families, our goal at JCC Association and of our Engaging Families Working Group is that all professionals, all of us, will see ourselves as responsible for this vital work of engaging families, and that families will see themselves as benefiting from this engagement throughout all the stages of their life. What does this mean for us as family engagers? It means that we do truly honor the wholeness of uniqueness at every family, at every stage of life. It means shifting our measures of success. It's not and can't be just about how many families walked into the door, but how can we instead focus on less tangible, yet more significant measures of success, such as changes in home practice or prioritizing relationships in different ways than ever before. Not only reprioritizing, in fact, but thinking differently about relationships. It's elevating our families from passive consumers to active protagonists in our community. By inspiring families to start on a joyful Jewish journey, we help to ensure the evolution and vitality of the Jewish community. And this in turn gives us a new opportunity to collect data, to document, and to reflect on the ever-changing nature of this incredibly important work. What a gift. Particularly during this pandemic and moving forward, JCCs and all of our institutions should be the center of gathering and connecting families within our communities. And it's critical that we're not only connecting families to us, but much more importantly, connecting families to each other. And this is something that I know so many of you have had on the forefront of your minds, certainly for these past 14 months and even longer. And we know this because we have heard and relished in your stories and your experiences and the meaningful opportunities you've curated for so many families in your communities. So we invite you to take this research from Kashti and review it, share it with your communities, with your colleagues, with your leadership. How does it align with what you already do? How can it inform your practice or give tangible evidence about the critical nature of our work? How can it inspire our path forward? So I'm pleased to turn it back over to Tara, who will lead us into our discussions, where we'll have the chance to hear from these four remarkable professionals in the field about some of these opportunities. And following each individual offering, we'll have some time together for a panel discussion where each of our speakers will be happy to dive deeper into their experiences. So please feel free over this next period of time to add any questions into the chat box as they arise, and we'll be happy to address any of those questions and further discussions during the panel portion of this discussion. So thank you, and over to Tara.
Thanks, Sarah. So as Sarah mentioned, we're really excited to have four amazing engagement professionals here with us today, each sharing their own perspective about how engagement is working in their world. The first one we have is Ellie Botkin. She is the Director of Family Engagement at the JCC of Greater Baltimore. And Ellie, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Sure. Well, hello, everyone. I'm so excited to learn with you all today and throughout the rest of this conference. I'm just going to jump right in because we have other great speakers to hear from. Thinking about what Tara mentioned in the beginning about how everyone has the opportunity to be a family engager, I want to also prop up that there's a higher level of professionalism that can come with being a family engagement person, at a designated one at an organization, and also just good customer service, good relationship building, regular communication skills, and that these can all work together. And so when we think about that in our JCCs, I think it's the most important thing is to appreciate and value the space and time for this work. I like to call it the meantime, the effort that it goes into making these connections. It takes courage and perseverance and trust to build relationships with with families that are members or not members or out in the community. In this meantime, we want to make sure also that our professionals have the support that they have support to manage their workloads appropriately. It's a lot of emotional labor to invest in relationships with people, and it takes a lot of listening and a lot of some people call them listening tours when they go around in new communities to find out who the people that they're serving and working with are interested in. That's what I like to call the meantime, making that space and time sacred for that work. Additionally, in terms of the professionalism that goes along with being in engagement, we have the pleasure and privilege of taking our Jewish cultural inheritance and using these ancient practices for today's challenges. So for Jewish engagement professionals, we have to take a look at meeting people where they are, finding out where they want to go, if they want to go anywhere, and kind of stick some peas in with the mashed potatoes to see if they're looking for more or less, or just trying to unpack their Hebrew school baggage. So all of that comes through with the relationship building. Relationships, again, they're at the top of the priority list for someone who's working in the engagement field. And this really, the goals that come out of our family engagement work have to be co-created or co-constructed for my ELC friends between you and people that you're working with and that you're trying to help serve. And so this is the why part of what moves me, and I'm sure what moves everyone else to be involved in family engagement. Is the why is uncovering what the goals are in these relationships that can ultimately lead to active partnerships in our community. Once we know what makes people tick and what they're looking for, we can involve them in empowering ways. In addition to all of those professional skills that come along under the community organizing umbrella, it's really important to be leading with our values. And in the Sheva Early Learning Framework, there's lenses that they use to approach curriculum and early childhood, but it's the same for any kind of engagement work too. Each JCC may have their own values that they like to lead with or start with, but all of those things can be a framework for these relationship-based efforts. So, I'm trying to think, for me, I like to think about curiosity or hakira as one of the things that I like to lead with. Talking to a new person is kind of like unwrapping the Torah or unwrapping a gift, finding out who they are as a story, as a people, as a book. And, once we have these collections of stories, then we can really write the next chapter together. So I think.
Thanks, Ellie.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you, Ellie. That was really great information of talking about the why. Next, we have Stacy Belzer. She is the Director of Family Engagement at the JCC of Greater Kansas City. Stacy, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Hi, everybody. Tara, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with all of you today. And Ellie, I'm going to pick up a little bit of where you left off, because at the J in Kansas City, we live by 5 Jewish values: Hachnasat Orchim, and I dare you or defy you to say that 3 times fast, which is welcoming and inclusive; Kahila, community building; Ha'ashara, enriching mind, body, and soul; Midor Lador, passing on Jewish culture and history; and Via Hafta, treating others as you wish to be treated. And these values at RJ are visible everywhere. They're on our walls, including around our indoor track and our indoor pool. We wear them on shirts every Wednesday. They appear in Hebrew, transliteration, English. They are our roadmap, and they permeate everything we do. And since these values are universal, they're meaningful to all of our members, no matter what their religious, cultural, racial, whatever their backgrounds may be. They apply to everybody. So in my role as Family Engagement Director, on the most basic level, I'm charged with creating programs that develop and nurture relationships among families, connecting them to each other and to other families and to the J. And as such, I get to interact with all departments all across the J, creating synergies and collaborations in all areas. And as Tara talked about, it's so important to make the connection that every J employee is an engager in everything they do. So for those of us in mission-driven departments, it might be easier to see how everyone at the J is a family engager, but not everybody understands that they are a family engager. So we focus on relationship building, which puts us in a position to support others in our organizations as engagers, from the baseball fields to theater to family engagement space. Engagement, as we know, is happening everywhere. And sometimes, I know in RJ, we still, and lots of places, we still feel a little bit siloed, but I relish in my role as family engagement as the bridge or the connector. I get to connect all the silos together and build those bridges just within my own agency. And we frequently hear in Kansas City that the J is the living room of the Kansas City Jewish community, which I love. It's one of my favorite sayings. We are a relatively small but very close-knit community, and the value of Hachnasat Orchim says that we invite all to join us in making connections and lifelong friendships. People here refer to the J as their living room because everybody feels at home here. It's where we celebrate life's moments. And pre-COVID, our main lobby space, which is just outside of my door and down, we have a 2-story atrium, so it can get very loud up here sometimes. The main lobby space was this central hub of activity. It was the kids' hangout place after school, meeting spaces for ECE teachers. It's actually even the lunchroom for our local day school that's housed here. We're a campus situation, so almost all the Jewish agencies are here at our Jewish community campus. So our day school is here, and they use the lobby for their lunchroom, the place to gather for Shabbat singing, and the place to catch up with friends on your way passing through for a workout. It's just now starting to feel like this again as more people are beginning to return to their routines. Just like in your communities, we have families that have been at our J for generations. They have such strong connections to the J. They've literally grown up here and are also raising their children here. They have an emotional attachment to the J. We also have new families constantly joining our community. And lucky for me, as an engagement professional, I get to connect with everybody, and I get to help all these different and unique families along their own unique specific paths. But on a deeper level, I really connect with our value of kahila, building community. We believe in the strength of community and seek to cultivate a sense of belonging in all that we do. A key aspect of engagement is community building and the establishment of working relationships and the support of partner agencies and organizations. Now, again, I'm very lucky because I live in a community that has a really long history of being committed to collaboration and partnership. That doesn't mean that we don't have tensions and issues and politics and territory and all that, because we do, everybody does. But we do really work closely. I get to work so closely with all the local agencies, congregations of every denomination, from New Reformed Temple all the way to Chabad and everybody in between. And I most frequently work with our PJ Library organization that's housed at our federation. And we work really closely together to create meaningful experiences for all of our families. And while I know that I need to engage families to connect to the J, whether they're J members or non-members, I also know that the outreach needs to be broader and encompass the whole community, because we know that the entire community benefits when each individual agency is strong and connective and collaborative. This past year during the pandemic, we felt the need to strengthen efforts to keep our community engaged more than ever, like all of you. While we were separated and feeling isolated, the urgency to connect felt even greater. And as we sought out ways to innovatively engage families virtually, I learned a couple really important things. Well, I learned a lot of things, especially about Zoom. And I said earlier, I cannot wait until I can compartmentalize or forget a lot of what I've learned about Zoom when it's no longer quite so relevant. But through several of my programs, I was able to strengthen the connections between families by including relatives outside of the Kansas City area, since we were all virtual. We found so much joy in cooking with cousins and baking with bubbies across the country and welcoming the beauty of Shabbat with family in other cities, including my parents who were in Chicago and I hadn't seen for almost 14 months. These connections, they also made me consider that everything we do as engagers is inherently intergenerational, and that we need to think about intergenerational issues and engagement with intentionality. They also led to some interesting Jewish geography conversations and some really great connections with other Jays around the country. And a lot of you are here today with whom we've been connecting, which is it's just amazing. And I'm going to be looking at some of these things as, I don't want to call them silver linings because that's a cliche, but I'm going to look at them as pandemic takeaways that I'm going to incorporate into my programs and concepts as we move forward to whatever this new normal is. And then I just want to end with a really quick story. So, and my friend who I'm referring to happens to be on this Zoom right now. So 25 years ago, I came to this J as a brand new young mother, and I walked into this play group. It was in some random room, and there were just a few of us in this room, and this other woman whose daughter was a couple months older than mine. We bonded over the fact that just through the conversations, we could tell we were the only two sane people in this group. And we really bonded over that. This woman who fed her kid, like, I don't know, 6 bananas a day. And we're like, potassium overload. But we bonded over this crazy group of people. And this friendship that formed in this random room at the J is a friendship that's lasted over 25 years. And today, and maybe because we both met each other and we were in that room and in the J, we are now both professionals at the J, and which is such a cool thing. We've been through a lot of things together, 2 kids, both of us have 2 kids. We've been through everything together. And now here we are as colleagues and professionals. And we know that it's so interesting when you think about that little tiny random playgroup of a handful of people. And I know we all struggle because as engagement professionals, it's really difficult to measure and quantify what we do, as Sarah was saying. But we are relationship builders, and what we build is meaningful. And it's so clear to see that that little tiny play group could have been, well, there's not enough people in this play group, we're just going to cancel it. But they didn't. And 25 years later, I'm still here, and so is my friend. And we're relationship builders, and what we build is meaningful. I see my role as a cultivator to help families build lasting relationships with each other, to other families, to the J, and really to the community as a whole.
Thank you so much, Stacy. I love all that information. And, you know, the idea of the community living room just sounds so welcoming. So thank you for sharing that. Next, we're going to hear from Shari Blake Schnee, and she is the Family Engagement Director at the Boulder JCC. Shari, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. A lot of what I do and what I can say echoes a lot of what my amazing colleagues have already shared. But I want to focus a little bit on what I do at the JCC and how I work across all ages. My role is, I actually do community and family engagement, and I work a lot with our different departments throughout the JCC. I started at our JCC in Boulder. I'm from the Boulder J in Boulder, Colorado. I think it was about 15 years ago. I've lost count a little bit, but I think it was about 15 years ago. And I've done just about almost every role at the J. I've been the camp director. I've been a youth director. I've built elementary school programs. I've worked a little bit with our ECC. I've worked with older adults. I've just worked in all different departments, arts and culture, you name it. And the one thread that I've seen throughout those years was the need for connection and a person who was keeping this all sort of in their head, a family and community engagement director. So our executive director and I used to joke that, you know, I would say, see you in a few minutes, I'm going out to the grocery store to pick stuff up for this program. And hours later, I would come back because I would meet all these people in the grocery store who wanted to talk to me about their families and about what they were looking for and connections that they needed. And so it really became apparent that we needed this role at our JCC. In addition, what we found is that Boulder has been a real hotspot for people who are moving here from all over the country, especially during the COVID times. So that has really sort of changed some of my direction. And I'm very focused on newcomers to the community from all different ages. So one of the factors that Sarah spoke about in the Kashi research is the need for connection and interaction. And that is making Jewish friends and building community. And that is really what family and community engagement is focused on. You know, my focus is on welcoming, connecting, and engaging across all ages. I do a lot of relationship-based engagement where I'm talking one-on-one with people. I also do a lot of programs, but a lot of the connections that I'm able to make because of those one-on-one connections and the information that people share with me. And so I'm hearing what they're saying, I'm learning what they're saying, I'm understanding what they're saying, and I'm able to respond to them, helping them make connections and get engaged in our JCC community, to each other, and also to our greater Jewish and greater Boulder community, secular community. So I talk to people, like I said, in all different stages of life. I talk to people who are new, some who've been here a while but have never engaged. Some are going through life changes. Some have small children, some are just having children, some are young professionals, some are retired. All different, I could go on, but the common theme is that their goal from coming to the JCC is not only to learn, but also to make new friends, make friends, and build their communities and find people who have interests like them. So as professional engagers, I truly believe that we have the power to make life-changing outcomes for the people that we talk to. I really do. And that's exciting. That is what makes me excited about my job and makes me love what I do. I can come to work every day and say, I probably connected two people that may have never met before. So that's just really exciting. And engage them in Jewish life, which is it's an honor and it's an opportunity. So what I've also found is that if people have a good interaction and feel connected by coming to one of our programs or by talking to somebody at our JCC in any department, as others have said, family engagement is across all departments. They feel good about what we've done. And, you know, like many people have said, it's what they feel. And so they will come and that's what they feel. So I want to tell you a little bit about a story that a connection that I had with three women that were empty nesters, and they all moved to Boulder over the course of 6 months. And each time, each person told me, when I talked to them one-on-one, a little bit about themselves. The one common denominator that I found that I first learned was that they all had a student at CU Boulder, and that they had moved here because they fell in love with the area or because they wanted to be near their children. So we had an event, and two of the women I knew were going to be there. One of the women had called me the day of the event and just said that she had just moved here and she had a CU student and she wanted to meet people, but she needed to get settled first. I said, do me a favor, please come to this event tonight. I have two people that also have students at CU I want to connect you with. She's like, no, I'm too tired. I said, just come for a little while. Just promise me you'll come for a little while. Okay, so she came for a little while, and as she walked in, she happened to mention that her husband was a physician, an ER physician, and was working in another town. Well, one of the other women who had a CU student that I was going to connect her with, also his husband was a ER physician. I knew all that from listening to what they were saying. So I introduced the three of them. They became fast friends at this event. They hung out together. They had so much in common to talk about. They continued that connection. Then COVID came, like a month after this event. And one of them emailed me. I checked in with all of them, and one of them emailed me and said, that program made a difference in my life. That because I made these three friends, two friends were very tight. And during COVID, I would have been so lonely. I wouldn't have had these connections. And if I hadn't had those connections, I wouldn't have been able to build my community here. And they were just all very thankful to the JCC. So what's the outcome? The three of them are best friends. They do things together. They've met new people throughout each of their friendships. They've built a community. Their families have connected. Not only have we helped them build their community, but they have become involved in the JCC and the greater Jewish community. They've joined us for programs. They've been part of our fundraising programs. They volunteer. They're on our boards. They've just really gotten involved very quickly. So what I just like to close with is that our jobs as professional engagers can really change people's lives. And I'm just really proud to be a part of it. And thank you.
Thank you, Shari. That was wonderful. And to hear how you're individually making those connections one by one is very inspiring. And our next, we have Midge Merlin. She is the Director of Family Engagement at Jewish Life at the JCC of Greater Boston. Midge, I'm handing it to you.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for being here. I just love hearing what everybody's had to say. Here we are from all over the country with, we've come to very similar conclusions about what Jewish family engagement means. And I think it really reflects, and we've been working very independently. I think it reflects that this is real. It's not something imagined. I've been asked to talk a little bit about Boston's trajectory since our Department of Family Engagement and Jewish Life was founded 12 years ago, and what's helped us get from then to today. And I'm going to focus on some guiding principles that have been foundational to our work and have contributed to our success along the way. This is no means exhaustive nor static. In fact, I was going down the hall before this started and I came up with another idea. So, but I hope it'll be useful to you whether you're from a small or a large community and whether you're deep into Jewish engagement or new to it. So the first is the what and the how. We try to be clear on what we're trying to accomplish. What are our goals in our family engagement work? What are our intended outcomes? And what does success look like? Is it the number of participants? Is it how many families our staff connect with at our program? Or is it bridging Jewish content between our programs and the home? What are we measuring? We're living in a much more data-driven world than when we began our work. And we have found that we can make a stronger and more convincing case when we can provide proof positive and tell the story of what we've learned. That way we can advocate for our work with our internal leadership and with donors and funders. So these whats and the whys that Ellie talked about earlier are critical to our work, but I believe that the how is equally, if not more important, and the rest of my guiding principles will focus on how we do our work. And again, this is not at all exhaustive, and I hope it's not too repetitive. So the next guiding principle is words matter. When we began, we made a conscious choice to reach and engage families living in the Jewish periphery who had less access to Jewish resources and may have been less affiliated and less identified. So that meant we needed to spread a broad net, and we set no bar about what it means to being Jewish or what it means to raise Jewish children. We stopped asking about whether families were interfaith or if they belonged to synagogues. We felt that even asking the question was fraught with judgment. It's important information and nice to know, but our role was and is to provide joyful Jewish experiences and build trust with our families. Lots of our families carry baggage when it comes to being Jewish, whether they're Jewish or not. So starting with our outreach and promotion, we were really vigilant about our language. We were conscious of our use of Hebrew. We never assumed anything. We didn't assume that they knew the words to David Melech. Something that ordinarily we might think is pretty basic. If we made people feel like outsiders, they wouldn't step foot in our doors. And if they did, they might not stay. So whether it's in the books that are being told or the songs that are sung and in our conversations with families, we are hyper conscious about the messages we're sending and how we will be perceived. And I strongly believe that our being intentional about language has been an important first step in attracting families who might not have come otherwise. And it then gives us the platform to build trusting relationships and create safe spaces and forums with them. The next guiding principle is families first. Millennials live in a world of endless choices and are less likely to be organizationally loyal. Many make their own Jewish decisions and don't automatically follow in their parents' footsteps like generations before them. If we were institution-centric, we'd be promoting membership at all our programs and charging more for our offerings than the market would bear. But we knew that wouldn't fly. We have to compete with every other choice, whether it's secular or Jewish. If our goal was to engage families, build friendships, increase their Jewish choices down the road, then we needed to think differently or be left behind. We needed to make it as easy as possible for parents, make it convenient, a safe space for exploration and discovery, high quality, low barrier, and plenty of time for social connection. Our work will never be about earned income, but the flip side is that our department is the largest recipient of philanthropy at our JCC. The right staff. You've heard this from everybody today that building trusting relationships and connections among families and with our staff is the key to building community, not only with the JCC, but with the Jewish community at large. Our part-time family connector staff are parents themselves of young children and are key to everything we do. They are reaching out, getting to know our parents, building micro communities, and sharing with their managers what they're observing and learning so that we can be responsive, nimble, and evolve. Because they're parents themselves, they understand the challenges facing parents, what keeps them up at night, and what they're looking for. And it doesn't mean we can always provide it, but that empathy is what helps us keep families at the forefront of our thinking. Hiring the right staff is has been an essential key to our success. And lastly, never be complacent. It's like being a parent of a child. Once you think you've got it down, they're on to another developmental stage and you need to readjust all over again. We need to listen carefully and continually learn from our work and question what we're seeing. Is it a momentary fluke or a changing trend or pattern that we need to respond to? It's the only way to stay relevant and helpful to our families and to step into the space that I firmly believe that JCCs are positioned for today more so than at any other time. And that's as a powerful and essential driver for supporting the next generations of Jewish family life in this country. That's it.
Thank you very much, Shari. All of those were really wonderful insights into those of you who are designated engagers. And Sarah, I'm going to pass it back to you. Oh, and I called you Midge, not Shari. That was my fault. Midge, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much to each of our panelists who have had the opportunity to share so far. I imagine we are all feeling the same way, that our heads are spinning with so many ideas, so much inspiration to bring back to our centers. And I think it's just so important for all of us to know whether our work is that of a dedicated family engager or it's a component of our portfolio, a component of our work, as it is for all of us who work at a JCC, who are working with families, our family engagers. I think it's so exciting and important to think about how this affects all aspects of our work. So we are now going to bring everyone back onto the stage, the Zoom stage. So we have an opportunity to answer some questions, to think together. I've seen a few that have come in the chat so far, and please feel free to keep bringing your questions into the chat box. And I'll start with the first one that I have seen thus far, which is, and anyone on the panel, please feel free to jump in. How can we as professionals think about engaging families without stepping on the toes of department directors, such as early childhood, camp, or after school care? So how is our work as family engagers being woven in to the work of the other departments? Shari, please.
So I think that having a good communication and conversations with the other departments. It's really not one person working on one thing. It's really working all together. So for example, I talk to our directors a lot. I talk to our development director a lot. I talk to our arts and culture. I talk to our camp directors a lot, our youth directors. My role is part of our programming team. So I'm in a team with a lot of those directors. But what I would recommend is it helps everybody. So from engagers, when you're talking to people, you are actually introducing the directors to some of the people who are looking for example, if someone's looking for camp, you can do a virtual introduction to the director. And once it's a two-way conversation, like you'll see, they'll start to say, I have a new family in camp. Would you mind talking to them? So I really think it's a communication and one-on-one conversation, and making sure that they understand what you're doing, what you're looking for, how you can help them, how they can help you, and really doing those virtual introductions.
Let's go ahead, Stacy.
Well, I was just going to say, just like we're building relationships with all of our families, we're also building relationships with all of our colleagues. And at RJ, my position as director of family engagement is part of the management team. So that's all the directors. So we meet every other week, which gives me an opportunity to give a report just like any other department would. So that's just a built-in benefit. But if that's not where your position lies, then it might be helpful to schedule regular meetings with some of your, like the camp and the ECE director, and meet with them one-on-one so you can build that relationship. I think it's just like with the families. I think it's all about relationship building.
Thank you. So true. I love that parallel between the work that we're doing with families and the work that we're doing with our colleagues. So important. Here's another question I saw come in. Our current members are pretty engaged, but we struggle with getting new members. How do you find and encourage or convince Jewish families to be a part of our community? Anyone feel free to jump in.
I'd love to share a little bit about the Baltimore Jewish landscape. We have we have the whole spectrum of Jew to Jewish in Baltimore, and our JCC even has different locations and in different neighborhoods that reflect different Jewish zip codes. And our federation here, the Associated, did a community study to see where some of the traditional Jewish zip codes are and where they have migrated or moved. So I would say that, on a higher level, it's good to have kind of a handle on the geography of where people are. And a phrase that gets thrown out a lot is meeting people where they are. There's a lot of outreach and engagement programming that takes place in public spaces. We partner with our local libraries. We have relationships with major shopping centers where we can do pop-ups in their parking lot, or at grocery stores and things like that. So definitely you're going to meet people who aren't necessarily your members when you're out in the community, because if you're just doing things at your house and at your J, you're only going to get those who are feeling comfortable to walk in through the door. So when you're out in the community, building relationships with businesses and other Jewish organizations that maybe serve a niche group, like for example, in Baltimore, we have an organization that just does like mitzvah projects and things like that. They're called Jewish Volunteer Connection. We try to work with them because they meet a different demographic and a different interest. They may not necessarily be members interested in fitness, but they would be curious about some of our arts and culture programs. So collaborative partnerships is another huge piece of being able to meet people who aren't necessarily your formal members. I also think the part of, and it was mentioned earlier, I think Shari and Midge also touched on it, that like a membership, a formal membership, is the model is challenging in and of itself. And people are finding new ways to relate to each other, new ways to be affiliated. Technology has certainly influenced the way we build relationships with each other and find and create community. So, if you can reframe your whole approach to engagement, and it's not about selling a membership, although certainly like there are parts of that in our bottom line, then people will pick up on that as well. A lot of times it can be a turnoff if people feel like they're being sold something. So I would say going out into the community, having strategic partnerships with other Jewish organizations and local businesses, and also just really trying to meet people for the sake of meeting people without an end game.
Thank you, Ellie. Oh, Midge, sure, go ahead.
I think that was really well said. I think the more you can know about your community, the better, as Ellie referred to, in different geographies. I mean, we serve different communities, and some of the communities, even, in Boston, are very different from each other. So the kinds of, programs that work in one place are not going to work in another place. So the more you can try to, find out, sort of the profile or the character of the areas that you're trying to serve, which are really helpful. We've also always offered a multiplicity of pathways, because, as also mentioned, people come with lots of different backgrounds and interests. Many of our programs are just social in nature, and don't necessarily have any Jewish content. So again, if you're trying to reach people who are less affiliated or less identified, as opposed to those who are, it's going to be different strokes for different folks. So we try to create many different kinds of opportunities. We've had the PJ Pioneer Club, which is outdoor and active things. We have welcome baby meetups at a coffee place, for parents of newborns. I mean, I'm sure everybody on the screen is doing similar things, and many things being offered in public spaces. We've done Touch Shabbat hops, with synagogues as well. So trying to offer a variety, and then by offering that variety, you can see from the response what's sticking, what seems, what's really working, and then you can then build on that. But I agree, we've moved away from transactional relationships to building trusting relationships. It's not about the sell.
So beautiful. Thank you. And so important. And Midge, you must have read Melissa's mind in the chat box, who was asking to hear more from you about engaging with people without talking about their backgrounds or synagogue affiliations and new ways to reach families. And I think a lot of what you just shared really touched on that, and different ways to engage different types of program offerings, meeting people where they are, whether it be where they're physically located, what they're interested in, what moves them. So thank you. That was all so beautiful, so much inspiration. Here's another question that came in from Elise, asking, there's a lot of discussion in the movement about whether bricks and mortar are becoming passé, and that JCCs need to think of themselves as programmatic engines rather than physical spaces. So for all of you, what are your thoughts on the importance of brick and mortar when it comes to engagement?
We actually refer to ourselves as a platform and not a place. So we're a platform for engaging families, but it doesn't mean that they have to walk into our place. I mean, Boston's different. We have a very strong three-way partnership. We administer PJ Library in Boston, so it gives us an advantage of having access to these families who live far away from our center, so they're never going to be walking in here anyway. So we've taken a long-term view that, okay, maybe they're not going to join, but maybe down the road they'll come to our camps, or they'll make other Jewish choices in the community at large. Yeah, we have definitely moved away from solely being bricks and mortar, because the majority of our programs are not happening near our building at all. We do pop-ups in different places. So I love that image of a programmatic engine. I think that's a great way to put it.
I also agree with Midge that a lot of the programs that we're doing and a lot of what we're doing is out of our building, especially during these times. But one of the things that I work on as well in our family and community engagement is outreach. And that's actually going out of our building into different communities around our area, around our JCC, but it might be like a half hour away. And a lot of, PJ Library can help you get connected. So it's another way to build your community and get new people involved in your JCCs. And you go to them. So meeting them where they're at.
Yeah, and I know the federations administer PJ Library in the majority of communities, but if you can partner with them, I mean, they've been our pipeline basically to families primarily.
I agree. I think that the brick and mortar is I would say it might be heading into a little bit more of the passé, but I will also say that with the pandemic and trying to come out of COVID-19, there are families and families with young children who are looking for a private space kind of programming that they know is controlled and cleaned and sanitized. They are looking for that kind of space. So, I think that I think everything old becomes new again. Just like hang in there if you can. but in Baltimore, we have a J Around Town platform where that is what we do. We go out into the community, and we've also had satellite campuses that were indoor play spaces in different neighborhoods that you wouldn't normally find a synagogue or a predominant Jewish community. And we're exploring again the opportunity for a family engagement center with the building that we have, and kind of repurposing the space for what families are looking for as a result of this pandemic.
I agree, Ellie. I think the pandemic has changed the way that we all look at everything, but I too am finding a lot of families who are looking to come here. They're excited to, and if you want to talk about not being brick and mortar anymore, we just did a $13 million expansion. So we're going to be here for a while, but I have a lot of families, especially my youngest families, who have been so isolated and haven't been comfortable taking their kids out, who are looking for my classes with my youngest friends to come, where they know that we're doing electrostatic spraying and we're wearing masks and we're social distance and all the things, because they don't go anywhere else. So people really want to be here. I mean, that doesn't mean that we don't partner with PJ, and we do so many programs with PJ on site, off site. We have a van where we have mobile fitness classes, and your trainer comes to you. They did like driveway classes all through the pandemic and all kinds of things. But I'm really starting to see people wanting to come back here.
And I actually want to say that as well. I think that coming out of this pandemic, everybody is asking, when can we come back to the J? So I think I do think they're here to stay, and I think there's room for everything, every type of outreach and coming into the J.
So amazing that our centers are truly the home away from home for so many people in so many different ways. Thank you so much, Tara and Midge, Stacy, Shari, and Ellie, for sharing your wisdom with us today. I know for all of us as engaging family professionals, this session is truly just the beginning. I know that there's been more questions coming in. We are so eager to continue this conversation, and luckily we have lots more time to do so. As I mentioned earlier in our session, we are excited to continue to dive into this work in meaningful ways. We're truly dreaming big, and we want you to be our partner in those dreams. We had hoped, as we were thinking through the session, about the possibility of having breakout groups. We want to talk, we want to hear from you, we want to connect. And so we hope you'll join us for a follow-up with our Engaging Families team on Tuesday, May 25th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll have the opportunity to process this session, to hear more from all of you, to continue the conversation. More information will follow in the weeks to come, but please let us know if you're interested and available to attend. I'm putting my email address into the chat box. And please feel free to send me an email if you're able to attend. Alternatively, if you put your email address into the chat box, I'm happy to reach back out as soon as we have more details to share. And there are still so many wonderful pro-con experiences for us to share together in this next day and a half. So here's a few announcements regarding the rest of our time together this week. First, our colleagues are our best teachers. From 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern today, join us for the JCC Excellence Showcase. In each 30-minute session, your colleagues will share JCC initiatives in programming, staff recruiting and retention, visionary management, or marketing and media, offering a great opportunity to learn about initiatives that can be replicated in your JCC community. Find more information and links to the sessions on SpotMe. And a quick reminder that the virtual vendor hall will be open again on Thursday, April 29th, that's tomorrow, from 1:45 to 2:45 Eastern. During this time, sponsors will be available for live, engaging, and informative video breakouts. You'll see product demos and have an opportunity to ask questions about how vendors' products and services can best help your JCC. Thank you so much for being here with us today, and we can't wait to continue the Engaging Families journey together. Take care, be well, and thank you. Bye-bye.